What's up, everybody? Today I wanted to go over some market crash strategies and what to have in place if we see another economic recession or something else like COVID come into play in our world. First things first, cash is going to be your best friend during an economic recession. You're going to want at least 6 to 12 months of cash reserves on hand. So if you have 5 properties and each one of those properties has a $1,000 a month mortgage, that means your monthly expense without any tenants is about $5,000. So at minimum, you're gonna want about $30,000 in hand in your savings account in reserves to be able to cover those mortgages just in case your tenants can't. Planning ahead is the next best thing you can do next to cash. So you're gonna wanna make sure all your properties have really good positive cash flow. If we see a major downturn in jobs and an uptick in employment, you're gonna wanna be able to have some leeway with your tenants. So one strategy is gonna be allowing them to use their security deposit and their first and last month's rent to help maybe pay a few months of rent if possible during the recession. Another thing you can do is help your tenants seek out government assistance. Usually most states are gonna have some sort of housing help to help with rental assistance. I had to do that actually during COVID with one of my tenants. He ended up being sick, and the Idaho housing program ended up paying 4 months of his rent directly to me. That gives him a pretty big break to kind of help save up, get back to work and get back on their feet to be able to pay rent for the rest of their lease. If things get really bad and slow, you can always reduce rents for your tenants. Now, you need to make sure that they know that that rent is still going to be due by the time that their lease is up. So you can put them on a small payment plan to maybe raise the rent later once things kind of start picking back up and making it easier on them. But for the time being, for maybe 1 to 4 month period, if we need to reduce rents to at least cover that mortgage cost to keep you out of the negative, then that's another route we can go. Having landlord insurance in place is always a good idea. It doesn't cover full rent though. So if you have a tenant that fulfilled their lease and then leaves and you have vacancy, landlord insurance isn't gonna cover that. But if you have a tenant that loses their job, they don't wanna pay rent and they just book it and leave and break their lease, your landlord insurance might help cover some of that cost. And if they do any damages, it'll definitely cover that cost. So you might be able to get some rental assistance through that if somebody breaks their lease. Last but not least, the greatest thing you can do is read books, gain knowledge, and talk to people. I've talked to multiple real estate investors who went through the market crash back in 2008 and actually went cash positive after the first couple months of getting through the initial hit. Instead of necessarily thinking that there's going to be a crash and spreading fear or just thinking too much about it, the best thing you can do is gain enough knowledge to just be adaptive when the situation actually comes. So overall, make sure you have the cash reserves to cover those expenses for 6 to 12 months if things get really bad. Make sure you're proactive and communicative with your tenants to get through the situation together, and just make sure you gain enough knowledge to be able to adapt to the situation and the economy when it comes.